Come with me on my first ever business class flight. This was 16 hours on American Airlines business class on a Boeing 7879 flying from Dallas to Shanghai, and I genuinely had no idea what to expect. So here's exactly how it went. Now, this was my first time ever flying business class, and honestly, it starts immediately. As soon as we boarded, priority boarding that is, the head flight attendant came around and personally introduced herself to every business class passenger, which immediately set the tone. They offered a welcome drink, orange juice, or champagne, and I just asked if I could combine the two. So yeah, I started the 16-hour flight with a mimosa. I didn't even realize what was happening yet, but they were already coming around to take our meal orders because dinner was about to be served as the first event on this flight. The cabin lights at this point were fully bright, announcements were made in both English and Chinese, and then they told us, if you'd like to change your watches and phones to local time, it's currently 11:59 p.m. in Shanghai, which felt insane because it was still mid-morning in Dallas. Now, after the safety video, we took off, and then somewhere over Colorado, they began the dinner service. I was actually so busy playing with my little business class pod and exploring all the features that the first hour and a half of the flight went by super fast. Now, in exploring the business class pod, this is where mistake number one came in. I actually only brought USB-C cords, and the seat outlets were USB-A. Fortunately, I came prepared with my little international power adapter, so crisis was avoided, but lesson learned. On this particular plane, USB-A. Then they dimmed the cabin lights to simulate evening, even though it was the middle of the day, and we started dinner. Now, this was a full multi-course meal. Not airline good, but actually good food. We started with a salad and a small appetizer. We had some warm mixed nuts. I had some red wine. Then they brought the main course. I chose the filet. They served it with rice and broccolini, plus warm bread. They came around a couple times with the warm bread options. Then for dessert, they had several options. I chose raspberry swirl cheesecake, and honestly, it was excellent, but at that point, I was full. The entire meal happened while we were cruising somewhere over Colorado-ish, and it kind of felt surreal to be eating a steak dinner while my body still thought it was morning. Now, after dinner, the cabin lights were super dim, and it felt like an obvious move to change into my pajamas. Yes, they give you pajamas and slippers in business class on American Airlines. The flight attendant directed me to the larger restroom at the back of the business class cabin, big enough to actually change clothes, which I appreciated more than I could explain. I checked out my little amenity kit, which included socks, an eye mask, lotion, lip balm, earplugs, a toothbrush, and a little dental kit. I laid my seat fully flat, I grabbed the blanket and the pillow, and then I made mistake number two. I skipped the mattress pad for my first attempt at going to sleep. The cabin lights were fully dark at this point, everybody was snoozing, and even though it was still daytime outside, we were all pretending that it was night. I slept on this first nap, but not that great. By the time we were flying over the ocean between Alaska and Russia, they served us a mid-flight snack. I had the cold noodle dish with fruit, and I grabbed a Sprite Zero so I wouldn't overload on caffeine. At this point, the Wi-Fi, which was not included in the upgrade price, by the way. At this point, the Wi-Fi became pretty sketchy. The flight attendants explained to me that once you get that far north, the connectivity can be kind of unreliable. And side note, I spent an extra $35 on Wi-Fi, and it was not included in my business class upgrade. The Wi-Fi stayed pretty spotty until we were closer to Japan and Shanghai later on in the flight. Now, after the mid-flight snack, I decided to try again for my nap, this time using the mattress pad they gave me. Absolute game changer. I took one excellent second nap, several solid hours, which was a pretty big deal considering that I'd woken up at 1:30 a.m. Central Time to start this travel day. When I woke up again, I walked around a little bit, had some snacks, looked out the window, and I felt like I was seeing some pretty big mountains. And then the flight attendant noticed and she said, "Come back to this window, I'm going to show you a better view." We were passing Mount Fuji, and I was able to get a video of it out the window, which was just unreal to me. I went back to my seat, I threw on my eye mask and my noise-canceling headphones, and I grabbed another short nap. A couple hours before landing, we had our final meal. I chose a vegetarian Asian noodle dish, had some broccolini, had some salad, and then it was time to change back into my travel clothes. As we were approaching, they played the customs video, "Welcome to the People's Republic of China." And of course, they handed out the customs declaration forms. When we landed in Shanghai, the local time was 4 p.m. Now, back in Dallas, where we left from, it was 2 a.m. The cabin lights slowly started to come up in kind of a warm orange tone to simulate daylight. And by the time we landed, everybody was sitting up in their pods, and we deplaned from the middle of the aircraft. Again, this was a 16-hour flight on American Airlines business class on a Boeing 7879 Dreamliner from Dallas to Shanghai. I paid about $1,100 for this upgrade, and honestly, I think I would do it again. For a flight that long, the sleep alone made it worth the price. And now I finally understand why people swear by business class on these ultra long haul routes. Let me know what questions you have about flying business class, about American Airlines, or about my trip to China, and I'll see you in the next one.